welcome to episode 16 of the Council. I am Luke Anthony Walsh, and joining me is the Andre the Giant to my Hulk Hogan, Mr. Mike Brown.
Hello, I am equally sized to Mr. Andre the Giant.
Mr. Andre Rousimov, the 8-foot wonder of the world. I mean, It is WrestleMania week, obviously, hence why I'm wearing my I don't know how to describe it. He's part real American, part real racist. Friend Shagger.
Hero.
So I feel dirty for wearing it, but that's Hulk Hogan for you.
Yes.
That's one thing we need to discuss on the council in a future episode. That is certainly for sure. As always, we'll be going through the council issues and going over this week's headlines and comments. Without further ado, I'm going to go first this week. Now, Michael, how many weddings have you been to?
I think 3. Might have been 4.
At the receptions, how often is Grease played at the wedding?
Quite often. Again, I haven't been to the funny thing is the number of them that I've been to, they've actually been quite spread out. So I don't have but yes, and the issue is, I can certainly say that I've been to many other, let's say musical parties, birthdays, 50th birthday celebration, things like that. And I can certainly confirm that Grease is played there too. But yes, I think it's quite common at weddings.
It's quite common at weddings. I'm cancelling Grease. Because, Michael, it is not appropriate for 2021. I feel like it has come to a point where the film in itself, the motion picture, is representative of a time in America that we don't want to remember.
Wow, that's interesting, because my attitude towards Grease is that I actually just think it's not a very good film. And I'm not saying that because I hate musicals. I feel like a lot of the time if a man says he doesn't like Grease, people just assume it's because either he doesn't like musicals or he doesn't like romantic films. But I like La La Land, But
never seen it.
Yeah, but the thing with Grease is that it's just I see. Admittedly, I have blocked it from my memory a bit, but I just remember the romance aspect being very confusing and kind of like I feel like it's one of those films where it's kind of just like the two people who are like the two kind of romantic leads just don't like each other for no real reason. Like they're kind of like they just have fights and stuff. And I just think that's stupid. So I would approve of canceling Grease for that reason, apart from anything else. I will say the whole. You touch on an interesting thing here though, which is in general sort of 50s nostalgia.
Let me put it in a much more simpler way. How many people of color are there in the motion picture film Grease?
You know what? I feel like aren't there some? I might be confusing it with West Side Story, but aren't there some Puerto Ricans in Grease? Maybe I'm confusing it. I feel like there is
you are confused with West Side Story.
Okay, yeah.
Because is I want to be in America.
Yeah. I don't know. I just thought maybe some Latinos showed up and they were like a rival gang in Greece. Like, hey, John Travolta, I'll race you for my new bike or something. And you go, yeah, cool, let's do it.
But it is predominantly white.
Yes, it's very white.
Uncomfortably white.
Super white. Yeah. Having said that, where is it set? I don't know. Because I wonder, if it's. I was going to say if it was set in Detroit, but apparently Detroit used to be really white, and then it kind of just gradually changed as the industries there changed. But yeah, it'll be interesting to consider where it is set.
So obviously it's Rydell High. That's the high school that they're at. It's set in the summer of 1958. So. There's something I need to come back to in a second, but you'll all make sense. After Sandy's parents decide not to return to Australia, she enrolls to Rydell High and becomes friends with Frenchie, and obviously then the Pink Ladies are formed. Obviously Danny's part of the T-Birds, and that's how that comes into it. Doesn't say where it's actually set, but. Obviously, late
So I
late
guess it's kind
50s.
of like one of those films that's like set in like what they call everywhere USA, you know, like it's kind of just a Springfield in The Simpsons. You know, it's
Like
not a specific
it's
place
still late
exactly.
50s, uncomfortably white, uncomfortably segregated.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the thing. I mean, I wonder. I see. I don't know what the. I know obviously that was kind of like what was it? Brown v. Board of Education was in like the mid 1950s, and that
mm,
was obviously the big thing where they ruled like segregation was bad. But I feel like it kind of stuck around for a decent while after it
mm,
was officially ruled it was bad. But yeah, I mean, I get. I mean you're right, yeah. And that's I mean that's the thing though, and this is why I kind of say it's about really the broader phenomenon of 50s nostalgia because in general, I think when people think about 50s nostalgia, they think about Greece. And I arranged a movie date with my significant other
mm.
and I kind of like as a joke said, you know, because it was like basically it was watching a movie but remotely
Yeah.
because of but yeah, I made a joke like oh yeah, we'll go to the movies then we'll you know go to the diner and get a burger and a shake and then we'll drive out to Makeout Point, you know, which obviously are all kind of allusions to the idea of what it was like to go on a date in the 50s. But I
Mm,
think it's kind of like a thing. I think it's a thing in a way that lots of people like. But the thing is, I think you're probably right. That's something that a lot of white people like kind of that idea of like you take your girlfriend, or if you're a girlfriend, your boyfriend takes you to, you know, the drive-in movies
yeah,
in your
yeah.
old kind of 50s nostalgia car, and
Mm,
then you drive down to the diner and all your friends are there,
mm,
and then you dance to some Elvis or whatever.
yeah.
But yes, of course. I mean, I certainly think that it's true that obviously the 50s, in many other ways, I mean, not just race, of course, it was also not a great time to be anything other than, I guess, like what a straight white male.
Mm.
But yeah, definitely it was not a great time. Although I guess the only thing I am thinking is I know there are, like, I have seen like some black people who I think like a lot of the time, like if you kind of go into like the YouTube comment section of I don't know like a
Mm.
Beach Boys thing, you'll see people with kind of like profile pictures that make it clear that they're black or whatever, and they'll say like, yeah, I love this kind of music and things like that. So I guess it's worth noting that there are always going to be kind of like I guess what's called in the business now people of color
Mm.
who sort of look past race themselves
Mm.
and don't concern themselves with the kind of racial implications of admiring the 1950s.
Mm.
Uh, but yeah, definitely, I would say it's kind of a situation where I suppose like if you already are like somebody who's not white, then you can look past race and not really kind of acknowledge the racial implications of things
Mm.
because obviously like you already are a racial minority. But I guess for white people to kind of look past race and not really acknowledge the racial implications of things is more problematic. So yeah,
Mm.
I mean, do you have any final points?
I do. Have you heard the Greece conspiracy theory?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
That
Sorry, I haven't. That's why
the
yeah, I'm excited.
are you ready for the complete mind fuckery that's about to come at you?
Yes.
So obviously at the start of the film they sing Summer Lovin'.
So,
Um, and the conspiracy theory about the whole film is that John Travolta, Danny drowned Sanny, and the whole film is just a complete flashback, and that explains the ending where they fly off in the car.
yeah, okay, yeah. I kind of thought that might be where you were going. But yeah, well, I always found it weird how in because obviously the film starts off with it being like she's like we're going to go to Australia, and then she's just not going to Australia, and it's like, well, that's weird that they set up the whole thing about, you know, she was going to Australia and she just doesn't. So yeah, maybe it would make sense if the whole thing was a flashback. Um, yeah, you
I
know,
mean, obviously in the song, the line in Summer Lights is "I saved her life, she nearly drowned." I mean,
hmm,
she definitely did die.
yeah, okay, yeah, no, yeah, I like that. I mean, again, I think it's one of those things I'd be interested to see if there's like because a lot of time with these theories, people do come up with some pretty impressive evidence. They'll be like, if you look here, it shows that actually the time doesn't make sense according to, you know, I don't know. They'll like come up with all this stuff.
Mm.
Like have you heard the theory that Marge Simpson actually was the one who shot Mr. Burns?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
good. Yeah. So basically, and the thing I like about that theory is there's like quite a lot of I think it's quite a lot. Well, actually, it's more like kind of contextual evidence. Like it's things like Marge
Mm.
is familiar with guns in the past, or you know is has used guns before. But anyway, no, yeah, that's good. So will I cancel Grease?
Let me provide one more bit of information for
Okay.
you before you come to your verdict. Of course, in 2020, the film was selected for preservation in the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant.
Hmm. Hmm. That's interesting. See, again, it's kind of like there's two angles. On the one hand, like I say, actually don't enjoy the film Grease. I think it's quite boring, and as far as I'm
It's
concerned,
quite vanilla.
yeah, the Grease medley,
Mega
I
Mix.
that people play, like where it goes through all different. I think that's fine. I have no problem with that coming on at weddings, for example. The film itself is honestly pretty, yeah, like you say, vanilla. But then, of course, there's more specifically the racial aspect. Like I say, I think it's one of those things where I don't think people should necessarily abandon it entirely. Like I think people are always going to have this kind of idealized view of the 50s, but they should just be aware. However, since I dislike the film itself, I will say yes, I will cancel Grease.
Thank you.
So anyway, do we want to do comments or news?
Let's jump straight into the comments because we've got one good comment from last week's show. Barbara Renaud has said, as a Canadian, I actually love the springtime change to daylight savings times because, as you said, suddenly the evenings are brighter. It did cause problems with the webinar series I was attending, as a combination of Canadians and Brits were attending, and we changed our clocks on different dates. But I also love the full change because you get that extra hour. So I vote not to cancel daylight savings times.
Yeah, that's kind of what I said. There is that sort of balance of it.
Yeah. Michael, may I suggest wax dental floss?
What was that a reference to?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if I mentioned flossing or if they're just genuine. I mean, the things I like to think that our camera isn't so good that it can pick up stuff in my teeth, but that's just
maybe they were looking at your wonderful dentures as you were giving your evidence.
No, yeah, I went to the dentist recently, and he said he was very. This is a quote. I wanted it as a certificate. He wouldn't. That he was very impressed with my brushing. So that was fun. But
they are overpriced, though, isn't it? Like if you have to have anything done, it's 60 quid for them to shove a needle in your.
I know. Yeah, it is, and I think it is one of those weird things because it's like if you don't get the regular checkups, then you have to pay more for the surgery and stuff. So it's kind of like it's basically a bit, I don't know. It's almost like dystopian in a way because it's like the poorest people obviously are unlikely to want to get a checkup because it's going to cost them money. But that means if something is wrong with their teeth, then they have to pay more to get it dealt with. So yeah, like me personally, I mean, I will say this. Fortunately, I'm not one of those people who's ever been particularly scared of the dentist. But I tell you what, if you're scared of the dentist and then you've got to pay for it, that's I guess. But yeah, it's I definitely do agree that our dental situation is weird, and also, I mean, the fact that dentist isn't covered under the NHS, we're just setting ourselves up for the bad teeth jokes, aren't we?
Exactly.
Like, even though I think you and I both have pretty kind of standard teeth, like decently white, decently straight. He's decently straight.
Are we talking about teeth or are we talking about representation?
Yeah. Talking about the 1950s. Decently white, decently straight. Anyways, do you want to hear some?
Let's jump straight into this week's headlines. What have you got for me?
Snooze. Well, first of all, we got some political news, and this is from the Independent. We've got 2 articles from the Independent this week. We've got 4 articles in total. Construction of Trump's border wall may continue under Biden administration admits. And it says a little sub-headline: Joe Biden can stop construction on the wall, but has not yet taken steps to do so. So, obviously it continues into it. But what do you think about this? The idea that Biden might just keep building the wall.
I said pre-election that the wall, or even pre-2016, the wall isn't the worst idea in the world. It's that, it is a dangerous border between Mexico and the United States of America. It does need to be regulated to an extent where proper checks need to be put in, and so that the country is being kept safe. That's a fair way to do it. It's not unreasonable to put it. It was just the way that Donald Trump has then said, Mexico needs to pay for it. It's going to be 100 foot high and this, that, and what have you. When it was absurd. So I think it's not the worst thing in the world for it to be constructed, but I think there needs to be a commonality under Joe Biden where the right checks are being put in, and the right people are being put in charge of making sure those who are crossing the border from Mexico to the US have the right paperwork and the right procedures are being followed.
Yeah, I mean, so I do think definitely like the rhetoric around the wall has kind of made the wall more controversial. But also, I think something I find interesting is the rhetoric around immigration in America in general is very weird. In that it's kind of like I would say in most countries, the question is how much immigration do you think the government should allow? Like that's kind of the conversation in the UK. But significantly, most people in the UK, I think, would say that anybody who comes here should come here legally. Like most people aren't really saying like, oh, we should just have loads of illegal immigrants. But the weird thing is in America, it's like that they're kind of their attitude is almost like again, and this is it's sort of a liberal thing, but it's kind of just the entire debate in general. The attitude is like, are illegal immigrants like good or bad? Should illegal immigrants just be allowed into the country, willy-nilly? And I think that's a weird kind of debate because obviously, like you say, particularly with regards to Mexico, a lot of those illegal immigrants are going to also be doing other illegal stuff because we know that there are lots of drug cartels in Mexico. It makes sense to imagine that it would kind of spill over quite easily. And that's one reason why you might want to have regulation. But I also think in general, like I don't think it's really a good thing when a society kind of just decides that laws should be ignored. Like if you're going to say that the law is a bad thing, you should get rid of the law. Like the fact that the debate is, oh, these immigrants will be illegal and they'll be undocumented or whatever else, but they'll just be allowed in anyway. I'm like, to me, that's a weird kind of way to phrase the debate. I would think if you're somebody who thinks more Mexicans should come in, and by the way, I think that's like a reasonable thing because America is a very big country. So I think it makes sense to assume that they could take in a reasonable number of immigrants, for all sorts of reasons. So I think it would make sense for somebody to argue like America should let in more immigrants. But I think it's weird that people kind of contextualize it in terms of the idea that having a wall there in place so that the people who are coming in legally is a bad thing in itself. I definitely, I pretty much agree with you there. I think there's nothing really wrong with having a wall, and I think it would be more helpful for the debate in general if rather than it being like, are illegal immigrants good or bad, the debate became how many immigrants should be allowed to legally enter the country. And obviously, if you're kind of a liberal progressive, your answer would be, well, quite a few. If you're a kind of conservative, reactionary or whatever, then you'd probably say not so many. But yeah, that's kind of the debate we have in the UK. And I think that's a more kind of...
Well, it's the same questions that we're asking about Northern Ireland and we're saying about the US and Mexico. It's very similar conversations.
Yes, lots of druggies in Ireland. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, and that's kind of the other aspect of it, because I think there are, and I think this is kind of also a libertarian thing to some extent, the idea that like borders shouldn't exist in general. And I've always thought like that's a good example of where you need to understand the difference between like an end goal and like practicality. Because, for example, I am completely on board with, say, for example, the Schengen area, obviously, where in Europe borders don't exist. But obviously that would not really work so well if we're talking about having an open border with Libya, for example. Like there are countries where, because of their specific socioeconomic situation, you shouldn't have open borders with those countries. And it's kind of like, but I do agree with kind of the idea that ultimately open borders should be an end goal. And for example, I wouldn't have a problem with the idea of like, let's have open borders between all of Europe, all of, kind of North America, like US and Canada, maybe even Japan and things like that. Obviously Australia and New Zealand, because ultimately there's not really much harm that can come from these countries interacting with each other. But I don't really want to open up a border with the Democratic Republic of the Congo, because that's just going to that's going to end badly, because obviously that country's in a very different socioeconomic situation. So yeah, for me personally, I think like open borders is a good end goal, and we should kind of work to be more kind of integrated and globalized, because I think it's kind of a good thing to connect to people. But yeah, it's just completely unrealistic to be like, let's just completely have open borders immediately and not expect that will have potentially, and obviously that's to say nothing of the potential political ramifications. So obviously it can increase xenophobia and things like that if you have loads of people coming in. So yeah, I guess we don't mind. We're giving Joe Biden a pass on the fact that the border wall may stay open. And to be honest, like they've spent money on it. Like it's not like they should take it down. I guess that's the thing. I mean, I guess the only difference is
There was always a fence, wasn't there? I mean,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
it's the sense that it's never not been there. It's just the sense that
yeah. It's kind of just
Donald Trump
strength.
wanted to reinforce it.
Yeah, I mean, what I've actually always said actually on the just the kind of final thing is that the only thing that annoys me about it is I wish that they would have made the wall slightly grander because I was thinking like nowadays people don't build like wonders anymore. I mean, we opened up talking about Andre the Giant, the eighth wonder of the world.
Yeah.
Uh, I think like when people do these kind of big things, like build a massive border wall or something like that,
Mm.
that's fine. What they should do is try to make it like aesthetically impressive. Because think about it, people go to China to look at the Great Wall of China. You know, Trump missed a real opportunity by not being like, we're going to build the wall and it's going to have big golden statues on it and it's going to be paid, covered in marble and things like that. Because that wall would have paid for itself. People would be like, oh, I want to go see the Great American Wall. But instead, it's just like a lame load of like sticks and metal grating and things like that.
Yeah.
It's no good. Yeah, okay. We'll do another politics one. I just think this one's interesting, kind of. Caitlyn Jenner explores run for California governor. And
Interesting.
the reason why I find this one interesting, of course, it will be a classic example of identity politics meets party politics. California, I think, is very much on board with this kind of transgender thing of, like trans women are women, trans rights now, all that sort of stuff. But of course, Caitlyn Jenner is a Republican who came out, I think, in support of Ted Cruz in the 2016 election. Ted Cruz obviously wanting to ban abortion and things like that. So I just think it will be interesting to see these two worlds collide. And to be honest, yeah, it'll be interesting to see not just how the Democrats respond, but also how Republicans will respond. Will Republicans be on board with supporting Caitlyn Jenner? What do you think?
You and I both know California, as you said, is such a strong Democratic stronghold that it will be a tall order for somebody like Caitlyn Jenner to be governor of California. Of course, you talk about identity politics. Former governor of California is Mr. Arnold Schwarzenegger. He ran as a Republican governor as well, so it's doable. It's just a tall order for it to be done. And of course, Arnold got in on the basis of, we talk about identity, he got in because of his name. Caitlyn Jenner, although not as popular as she was 5 years ago, could still very well achieve the same thing. It'll be interesting to watch.
I do think,
especially as Gavin Newsom, the current governor, is Democrat as well. So it'll be interesting to see when it comes up next year.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, obviously, because I think one of the things with governors, because, for example, Mitt Romney was governor of Massachusetts, and as governor of Massachusetts, for example, he instituted, I think, like something identical to Obamacare. And then he ran on the national platform opposed to Obamacare. So it's kind of like there's a weird thing in America where it's like a lot of the time, if somebody's in kind of a liberal state, they'll run as a Republican, but as like a very liberal Republican. And it's kind of like a lot of the time the kind of Republicans in somewhere like Massachusetts or California are more like our conservatives. Whereas like if you're a Republican in Texas or Mississippi, they're the crazy ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll tell you what, the funniest thing would be if Caitlyn runs and then becomes the first woman president, sets up governor, and then that would be I don't see that happening.
Now that you said that, in about 15 or 20 years time, if it comes true, you'll look back and think, holy shit.
Yeah, that would be, I think that would just be the best thing, like first woman president, Caitlyn Jenner. And okay, now we move on to the sillier ones. And the first one is brothers who killed family in murder-suicide left note about gun control and the Office finale. I just gonna love this. So a 19-year-old man from Texas killed his family and left a suicide note about gun control and the finale of comedy series The Office. In the note, which first appeared on his Instagram page over the weekend, Farhan Tawheed described binge watching TV shows with his brother. He wrote, "The first and most important show we watched was The Office. He added that the show was one of four very important issues I encountered throughout my life. Mr. Tawheed complained in the note about how The Office should have ended when Steve Carell's character Michael left because it was all downhill for the program from there on. He added, "People say the finale makes up for it, which is a complete lie. Sure, it was cute, but it doesn't justify the last few shitty seasons we had to deal with." So I guess the most important question is, do you agree with this guy who killed his whole family and then himself, that The Office, the finale of course, the US version of The Office was disappointing?
I mean, it's a new one. It's a new one to put in a suicide note. Of all the things to put in your suicide note, goodbye, my friends, my lover, death to the West or what have you. Nah, I'm going to complain about the US Office and put that in. I mean, that's unfair on Jim and Pam. I mean, surely that was the main drawing point of the Office. And of course, Dwight Schrute, the greatest paper salesman known to humankind. So I binge watched the US Office through lockdown. It's just an amazing series.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I can't say that I actually thought that the latter two seasons were particularly disappointing. I wasn't in love with the show. I think it's like entertaining. But yeah, I mean, I prefer the British version because I'm such a rampant nationalist. But yeah, because of that, I didn't think like the latter seasons were worse. And to be honest, it was kind of like, I remember like the first season and maybe even like the first two seasons, it was really hard not to just kind of compare it to the British version, which meant I struggled to enjoy it. So I actually I found, if anything, I liked the last two seasons more than the first two seasons. That's my hot take. So, but don't worry, I'm not going to kill my family to try and make that point, to punctuate my opinions on The Office. But yeah, just a classic story because who wouldn't like that? And a final one, okay, and this admittedly, I hope you know Jordan Peterson. He's been on Joe Rogan, so that's why I was thinking you might know him.
Are we on about the clinical psychologist?
Yes.
Jordan Peterson. Yes.
So he is of course the guy who, I guess, his politics is variously categorized. He's sometimes like spoken about as being like a member of the alt-right and like somebody who's like a full-on fascist. Whereas I think he would probably say that he's just like a reasonable, sensible thinker who doesn't agree with. Well, I think he calls himself an individualist and so he like opposes collectivism. But you'll be pleased to know, according to Variety, Jordan Peterson says he inspired the villain in Ta-Nehisi Coates' Captain America comic. Jordan Peterson, the conservative psychology professor and podcast host, has claimed on Twitter that he's inspired the villain Red Skull featured in the run of Captain America comics. Red Skull preaches his 10 rules for life, as well as chaos and order, and the feminist trap. This appears to reference Peterson's self-help book, 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos, released in 2018, and Peterson's contention that chaos is represented by the feminine. So basically, what do you think of this? Do you think
I mean, a lot of people, MCU or otherwise, would say a conservative right-wing psychologist is enough to be a villain in MCU anyway, let alone to inspire a character. It's interesting, isn't it? I've never known a time in any universe, be it DC or MCU, where a political motto is being put across.
Yeah, there's like a villain. Yeah,
I mean you've got Bane, obviously. And you've got, I can't think. I'm not saying I'm the most knowledgeable of comic book superhero.
Because we're not nerds.
We're not nerds. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I guess the standard thing, everyone used to like the Joker. The Joker was kind of like people thought like the Joker was associated with incels, but no, I mean, the one thing I do find interesting about this is I do think that one of the ways that I think I don't know if I could say this is 100% about fascism because, as a bipartisan hero, I mean, maybe this is a thing on the left as well. But I think one of the aspects of sort of like a cult-like mentality is when you attach sort of personal self-improvement to changing your kind of political or ideological views.
Yeah.
And I think that's obviously something which Jordan Peterson has kind of pioneered by being like, you need to take, I can't do his voice, but, you need to take control of your life by, doing all of these things, and then also attaching that to his own personal kind of political brand. And I do think that is something which the right wing in particular has relied on. I've seen like a lot of kind of right wing people who are very kind of like into fitness and things like that, and like physical health, and then they'll sort of relate that to their politics. Be like, I get fit so that I can defend the nation, I can defend the motherland, and it's like, obviously once somebody's done that, I guess it's kind of the reason why I say it's cult-like is it's kind of like hard to change their mentality when they've attached their view of the world to their own kind of physical well-being. And that's why I personally have always said, like, my political beliefs and my lifestyle are pretty much have nothing to do with each other. Like, there's nothing really about my political beliefs that really informs my lifestyle, because that way it's kind of like I can change my political beliefs according to the evidence without having to worry that I'm going to tear down the entire support network or whatever I have for how I live my life. But yeah, I do think it makes sense to have a kind of have any kind of piece of media dealing with fascism that is willing to acknowledge kind of like the way that contemporary fascism can manifest, which is a lot of the time through these sort of personalities who present themselves as like self-help gurus, but then of course they just sneak in some crazy ideas through the back door. But yeah, that's my take. Have you got any news for us, Luke?
I don't know, but
Okay,
Michael, if they want to get in touch and give us any comments or any issues that they want us to consider, Michael, where can they get in touch with us?
Well, Luke, they can get in touch with us at cancelcouncil@gmail.com. That's cancelcouncilYT@gmail.com. And where else can they get in touch with us?
They can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and on Facebook. That is Cancel YT. That is CANCELCOUNCIL. YT. Come
Good.
check us out. Come say hi, and we'll definitely read out your comment and consider it as well. We are up to 109 subscribers.
Yes.
So we are motoring past. I'm just comparing it to all of your other channels.
Yeah. I mean, we're doing okay. But yeah, I think it's good. And let me tell you, Luke, I think the only way to go is up.
We're doing better there. Oh, we're nearly up to Dank Pole.
Yes, Dank Pole is our enemies, even though I'm playing both sides. No, yeah. But yeah, I think it's going well. Anyway, do you want to hear what I would like to cancel, Luke?
Yes, I do.
Okay, it's a big one. It's new children's shows. Here's my beef, okay? And it's kind of like I could approach this from two angles. The first one is kind of like, I hate to say it, but sort of like the quality angle. And okay, I should clarify, I'm not applying this to all shows, but I will say, I think a lot of people can agree that the era of hand-drawn animation looked much better, or like let's say like 2D animation, because I think some of it is kind of computer drawn obviously, but 2D animation is much better than 3D animation. But I think we've now reached a point where 3D animation is cheaper, because 3D animation you can just like make some big blocks in like a thing, and you can have your 3D animations kind of walking around, but it looks worse. Like I remember I think like Fireman Sam now, for example, is 3D animation. I think even like Winnie the Pooh or something is like 3D animation. They're like taking
Winnie the Pooh, more like Winnie the shit. Yeah, am I right?
Exactly. Also, I think what's it called? Noddy. Noddy was made a 3D animation. Anyway, the point being, and in my opinion, it just looks worse. Like it doesn't look as nice as when you've got the actual kind of flat. It's weird. For some reason, flat things look nicer. But that's point one. But the second issue I have with it is when it's being produced by CBBC. Obviously, CBBC is part of the BBC. It's the Children's British Broadcasting Company. Not paid for by children, by the way, which I think is unfair. I think it should be paid for by children, for children. But obviously, what that means is that they are getting some money from the license payer. They're getting money that could be allocated to other shows. And I think here's the problem. You don't really need new children's shows because children, one, love watching shows over and over again. Like the one thing everyone knows, I'm not even a parent, but I've heard from everybody who is a parent that you have to tolerate the fact that your kid will watch like the same stuff over and over again, and it will bore the crap out of you. But then the other thing is that children are only children for quite a short amount of time. Like obviously it makes sense to be producing more stuff for adults because adult stuff can apply to anybody from like the ages of, let's be honest, like 13 to kind of, I don't know, there's like probably an age where you get too old for some of it, but let's say 60, something like that. Like that's a long gap, and even that might be a conservative gap. So obviously it makes sense you want to produce stuff for those people. But to be honest, I don't really see the need to make new children's shows. Like you can just keep rerunning, Rupert the Bear, Noddy, Fireman Sam, Postman Pat, Bill and Ben, the Flower Pot Men, because the reality is that these shows were fine for kids in the past and they're fine for kids in today. So, especially when you consider the fact that the CBBC is not a commercial channel. And of course, to be honest, no channel for children should be a commercial channel anyway, because, in the UK, we have quite strict rules about advertising to children. So I think it just makes sense to remove any kind of financial pressure at all from children's programming and just say, okay, you know what, all of the children's programming, it's been done by people in the past. We can just recycle it. And the reality is that no child is ever going to sit there and think, oh, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like a classic old British show, but I don't know, let's just say Rupert the Bear. I don't know, I can't think of any of them, or Winnie the Pooh. I don't know. This is fun, but I wish that they look like horrible, disgusting CGI characters. So yeah, and obviously I think there are some exceptions. Like obviously there's like Blue Peter and like kind of like, so I guess what was live action kind of children's shows. Obviously they can be, I think, continue to be produced. But like in terms of animation, one, if you're going to make the animation look horrible because it's so cheap anyway, why even bother doing it? Just get the animation from before that looks good. And that's my beef.
Interesting. I definitely cancelled. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day about how children who grow up in 2021 will have a different experience to children that have, 25 years ago would be completely different.
Yeah, it is insane. Like genuinely, I'm quite young. You and I are roughly, I'm older than you, though. And there is that aspect of, I genuinely do feel like the difference between having sort of information technology at your fingertips and not having that is going to be like a massive division in generations, I feel. Because when I was a kid, the idea of like just being able to watch whatever you wanted whenever, that kind of only really emerged for me when I was like 13, 14. Like obviously, I had a laptop and like you had YouTube, but like you didn't have like full kind of like, people weren't uploading full on documentaries or like TV shows to YouTube. YouTube was just a place to share kind of like weird videos. YouTube is like a place where like as an actual, let's say, kind of media platform to rival television only really came into, to be honest, I'm actually being conservative. I feel like it really only came about in kind of 2014, maybe 2013. So that would be like when I was getting, leaving sixth form, getting ready to go to university. So that's like a huge difference. And like definitely nowadays you do have, of course, parents will set their kids down with the iPad and on YouTube Kids, and it will play, I don't know, an endless stream of Peppa Pig episodes. And that is very different.
Not an endless stream of council episodes.
Yeah, exactly. I keep ticking that this show is appropriate for kids. I keep saying it's not. No, but yeah, that's the thing. I genuinely think like, actually, it gets to another thing, which is, I actually do think that something which people will miss, that generations of the future will miss, is Saturday night TV. Because I remember when I was a kid, it was like obviously the only thing you could watch was what was on TV. You couldn't just go on the internet and search up like what you wanted to watch because that whole streaming thing didn't really exist. And I mean, I'm talking about like kind of the mid 2000s. So yeah, but obviously on Saturday there would kind of be the standard drama. Like a lot of the time it was Doctor Who, but they'd kind of have whatever. It would be like, they had like Merlin, and I think they had like, so they'd usually show like some kind of, like I say, drama on Saturday. And if you were over someone's house for the weekend, you'd be like, oh, it's we just had dinner, time to watch that. And then obviously I think that a lot of the time it'd be like kind of a talent show. So it would either be like Strictly Come Dancing or X Factor or whatever, and you'd watch that. And then there'd often be like kind of a comedy show at like 9. And if, like at that age, it was kind of like when I was going to bed at like 10 p.m. So that'd be 9. And I go to bed. And like that kind of idea of just having the TV decide for me was something which I kind of appreciated. Because now it's like there's so many choices. There is no excitement anymore about having like the exciting shows be on this one particular day. So I do feel, sorry for kids. Because I think too much choice can be a bad thing.
I think all of this is a further argument for a later episode of the Council, because I think even linear television itself. We were talking about Saturday night TV. Saturday morning TV's changed completely. I mean, gone are the days of SMTV Live and Live and Kicking and watching cartoons on Saturday morning. Gone are the days of Good Soccer AM on Sky One. I know I'm speaking as a football fan, which you're a totes rave about, Michael. But those days are gone where you would watch Soccer AM in the morning. You'd watch Match of the Day in the evening. There's no need to.
So, yeah, I remember Match of the Day. I remember always having to decide, because it was always on quite late. I remember always having to decide between watching it, staying up late to watch it, or
not watching it at all.
No, recording it on the record thing, and then I'd have to risk going to school the next day and hearing all the results. So, and because I was one of those people who I wouldn't find out the results until I watched Match of the Day, because it was more exciting that way. But yeah, definitely. So the important thing is, children's TV cancelled. Hate it.
Forevermore. As we said, if you want to come in with your council issues, we'll be happy to consider them. Please email in at cancelcancelYT@gmail.com. It goes CANCELCOUNCIL@gmail.com, and you can find us on social media at cancelcancelYT on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. It is CANCELCOUNCIL YT. Please come hit us up and we'll be sure to feature you in the next episode. But until then, I have been Luke Anthony Walsh. That has been Michael Brown. We'll see you next week for the next episode of the Council.
Back at ya.